Alright, let's finish this fucker. So, before I get so rudely interrupted last time, I was talking about the Babysitter. And I was talking about how the first Babysitter is the best in the 4-part series. Yes, there's Babysitter 1, Babysitter 2, Babysitter 3, and of course, Babysitter 4. But the first is by far the best. So, as I was saying, it's about a girl named Jenny who takes babysitting gigs. And she starts watching this kid, who is the son of this mysterious guy named Mr. Hagen. And she starts, getting threatening phone calls. And she tells her boyfriend about it. And it seems like her boyfriend is the obvious culprit, but it's really not. And just the premise is what makes it so enjoyable. And it makes it one of my very favorite Stein books. The execution's obvious, it's not the best mystery, but it's definitely, just for the premise alone, and for the the whole atmosphere the story has, makes it my favorite. The sequels, aren't that great. They're all unique. The first one and the 3 sequels are all very unique. They all stand out from each other. The second one is she has survived the crazy guy at the end of the first one, and he's back to kill her. And, she's trying to slowly go back to her life, babysitting. And the phone rings, and she picks up, and it's him. And it's not great. It's not terrible as far as sequels go. It's pretty much just a rehash of their first one. But again, there's that great cover art. So, and hoo boy, we're getting to the third one. So, Babysitter 3 is honestly the worst out of the 4. Again, Jenny's trying to go back to a normal life. She goes to stay with her cousin, and this time she just drops the whole babysitting thing entirely. She gets asked to babysit a kid, a baby this time, and she eventually does, but she's not enthusiastic about it, and she has to really be persuaded to, and she just hangs out with her cousin and her boyfriend. And again, she's so traumatized from the events of the first 2 that she keeps seeing the guy that was stalking her and trying to kill her everywhere. It starts off, she's at the mall, and she thinks she sees him in the crowd, and thinks she sees him in a department store, but it turns out it's just a mannequin in the window. And honestly, this one is really stupid. Oh my god. This time, actually I was wrong, this time it was her cousin Deborah who gets the job babysitting. Because Jenny is fuck this, I've had enough, no more watching kids. Which, understandable, given her experiences with that job. But then Deborah starts getting the phone calls, and Deborah starts getting stalked, and Jenny still thinks that she sees the guy everywhere. And it all leads up to a really disappointing and gloriously stupid climax that I will give Stein props. I did not see it coming. I did not think it was gonna go there. I like it, but I don't want to spoil it because it's just terrible. And I love the tagline on the cover. It says, "He still wants her, alive or dead." And again, great cover art. I really got to give props to these classic point horror thrillers illustrators who did these covers, because these are fantastic. And all of them, not just the Stein books, but other point writers like Diane Ho and what's her name, Richie Tankersley Cusick. I'm butchering that name. And Carolyn B. Cooney, of course, and A. Bates, Christopher Pike, Carol Ellis. They all had great cover illustrators who did their books. This was a great era for like teen thrillers. There was this whole kind of golden age from about the mid 80s to about the early to mid 90s. There was just several of these like teen thrillers with these fantastic book covers, and some of them were quite good. Some of those writers I mentioned previously, like Carolyn B. Cooney and A. Bates and Christopher Pike, wrote really good stuff for this demographic. They wrote really exceptionally suspenseful thrillers. But none of them have the place R.L. Stine does for me. And that's not just nostalgia. Like, I genuinely like R.L. Stine. I don't think he's scary, but there's something about his stuff that is fun. It's always felt fun. Even when I was a kid reading the Goosebumps books, those were fun. Like, I never thought they were scary or suspenseful, but they were a blast. And back when I got into them, I actually was reading other stuff written for older audiences too at that time. Like, when I was like 12, I was already reading like the Fear Street series and these like teen thrillers, and it was all fun. Like, and I actually liked those more then because they felt a little more mature. They felt a little more like, this is for more grown-up kids. Because when I was like 11, I was thinking if you're 16, you're an adult. And these are written for like the older kids. And I'm just this little kid reading this stuff. And it gave it much more of a feeling of excitement. Like, almost like I was getting away with something. Like, oh, I can't believe my school library let me check out these books for teens. That's what it felt like. And reading them now, it's like, yeah, even for a young adult audience, these feel really tame. These feel really, really, very cleaned up and almost saccharine. Like, that's the thing about all of Stein's writing for teenagers. Like, it all feels too goody-goody. It feels too, like he's trying to write like he normally does for kids, but he's just making his protagonists a little older. Like, that's a big complaint I have. Because, like, the same kind of, like, goofy sidekick characters you'd read in a Goosebumps book are prevalent in all of these books, and all of the Fear Streets, and all these solo, standalone teen thrillers. There's this goofy, immature sidekick character that acts like he's, like, 9 when he's 15, like the rest of these characters. And I just... It's a detriment to his writing, and that's actually one of my biggest problems with his stuff he wrote for teenagers. Like, I can never look at the stuff he wrote for kids, like Goosebumps, because that's written for, like, an audience between the ages of, like, 10 and 12. And so, I mean, you know, there's still going to be a lot of, like, immaturity in that audience. Like, I know I was when I was reading them. And I can see, like, a protagonist having a goofy, like, friend character in that. Like, that makes sense for that story. Like, that makes sense when you're writing a kid character for a kid audience. However, when I read these teen thrillers, it's like, this character's 16. Why is he making, like, some dumb goofball joke like a 13-year-old kid, or a 12-year-old kid, or a 9-year-old kid would make? And it's usually like a boyfriend character. It's like usually some dumb jock guy that thinks he's cool and funny and always does some random stupid shit. It's like, usually always it's a boyfriend character or like a best friend. It's always a guy too. It's never a girl. Like, the girls will make goofy jokes here and there, but they're not to the degree of stupidity like these immature guys are making. That's something else. He writes like the same kind of characters over. His protagonists, like the heroines and all of these like stories, are all the same kind of characters too. But the thing is, I don't really go to Stein for characters. At least for these. Like, the characters in Goosebumps stand out more. I go to Stein more for the fun, the campy cheesiness of it. Like, I like how cheesy his stories are. I like that they follow these kind of, like, premises. I like And usually, like, his lead protagonist is usually a very likable girl who's going through this horrible stuff, and you're rooting for her. I like that. I want to see her succeed and come out alive at the hands of yet another deranged stalker. I like that. Characters like Karen in The Snowman and Jenny in the Babysitter books. Like, I like these characters. They're... And I will say this, like, his lead protagonists always feel more developed. Like, characters like Jenny, and actually in this one even her cousin Deborah, feel very developed. Like, he writes girls with a lot more maturity and fullness of character than he writes guys in these books. But if you're gonna make the girl the main character, I'm glad that he's at least writing the main character with some depth. Because characters like Jenny or Deborah or some of the other characters in his other books, they feel more or less like real teen girls. I mean, sure, they make a little less smart decisions than I think a real teen girl would make in these situations, and they don't always use their head. But at the same time, they feel very real and believable, and that goes a long way with me, because for me personally, to me, the most important characteristic of a story is the character. Like, characters come first, and then plot, and everything else is after it. As long as you have a likable character, you could have like a completely plotless story, and it would work for me. Because the characters would pull everything through. So anyways, I don't want to give away how Babysitter 3 ends, because it's wild. It's a real twist. Usually his twists are pretty obvious. You see them coming from miles away. The twist of this one is actually pretty well done, even if it is very far-fetched. It's like, I genuinely didn't see that coming. That works as a twist, even if it's not a logical twist. Even if you can't really see how it came to be. Because... let's just say it involves Jenny's previous experiences catching up with her and making her act in a way that's different than she normally acts. And this affects everyone else. And it also has a lot to do with who the person who was stalking her cousin is. That's the best way I can say it without, like, giving away what's going on. But it's simultaneously the best one. Not the best one. It's simultaneously the most original one and the worst one. But Babysitter 3, actually, even if you don't read the rest of them, read this one. It's fantastic. So there's that one. And last up is Babysitter 4. This is the fourth and final one in this series. Stein must have really liked the Jenny character. Even though his cover artist always portrays her as looking different on each one. Because she looks different here than she does here. And she looks different, a little more closer there than she does there. That doesn't really look like her much. But anyway, Babysitter 4. Like I said, fourth and final one. I don't even know how to talk about it. So you would think Jenny at this point would have learned her lesson. You'd think, okay, after 3 nightmarish experiences of being harassed and stalked by a maniac, you would stay out of it. You would stay out of babysitting. You wouldn't take any jobs. You would say no if anyone offered to pay you to watch their kid. You would flat out refuse it. You would be like, no, never again. I'm through doing that. I'm looking for another side hustle. Fuck this. I'm not doing this anymore. Forget it. Jenny doesn't. Which, I mean, I guess if she did, this book would be a lot different. And it would be probably a lot more of a boring story. But honestly, Babysitter 4 is honestly just a little boring to me. Because after 3 of these in this series, 3 books that all follow the same kind of beats and the same kind of plot and the same kind of moments and the same kind of characters and the same kind of setting. Even if the setting itself changes, it's the same kind of story happening again and again and again. And if it wasn't for the twist at the end of 3, like, the whole series would be the exact same story 3 times. The first 2 are the same story. Like, it happens once, and then it happens again, and then it happens in the 3rd one, and at the end of the 3rd one, there's a big twist that separates it. But Babysitter 4 just feels boring. It feels like we're retreading the same ground. We're not saying anything new. Stein tries to establish some new things. Like, he takes Jenny's character and she moves. She goes to a new neighborhood. You know, she's trying to get on with her life, start over, move ahead. Move ahead. Go forward. It's not too late to whip it. Anyway, sorry. I'm just going to read the back of this to you because it cracks me up. New neighborhood. New nightmare. Don't live in the past. That's what they say. So Jenny's trying to forget all of the horrible babysitting experiences that landed her in the hospital last year. That's true. She does go to a hospital at the end of the 3rd one. That ties into the twist. But now Jenny's in a new house, in a new neighborhood, and Jenny's new neighbor, Mr. Warsaw, wants her to babysit poor Jenny. If only she could just say no to sitting. Because someone is watching Jenny, waiting for her. Someone who hates babysitters. Someone who wants her dead. Yeah. It's just the same thing. There is a kind of a twist at the end that ties back into the previous ones, but it's so far-fetched. It's not even like entertaining. It's just weird. So, read this one only if you've read the first 3 and like it for a 3rd one or 4th one. Or if you're like me, a huge R.L. Stine diehard fan and want to read everything he's written, then I would recommend it. Aside from that, don't read this one. This one is not as good. So moving on from The Babysitter, all 4 of them. Next up, we have the first in a series of just kind of middling quality novels. These all kind of are in the same category. None of them are kind of any better or any worse. They're just kind of the same level. But these, I will say these are all a few notches above the preceding ones I talked about in the last part of this video, and the ones I just got through talking about here. So the first up in our kind of series of mid-level Stein is Beach House, which, that's a great cover. That looks like a movie poster from the slasher era, which this came out in the slasher era. It's published in 1992, so it was just at the end of the slashers. It's a beach slash, and it actually is, like, slashers are fitting, because this is basically a slasher movie in book form. It's about a group of kids are going to the beach for the summer, they're partying, having fun, hanging out, and there's someone who's kind of, like, going around and offing them one by one. It's great. I really like it, but this feels basically like Stein wanted to write a PG level rated slasher flick Only instead of a screenplay, he wrote it as a novel. That's what this is. But it's not bad. I like stories set at the beach. I like I like horror movies set on the beach, or horror stories set on the beach. I like slasher flicks. I like slasher movies. So what better than to have a slasher movie on the beach? And he returns to this. He did this, I think, previously in Beach Party. And he does it here. And there's a few Fear Street books that take place at the beach. So he apparently likes that setting as well. He likes people killing people with sun and sand involved. Which, if you're gonna kill off your characters, you might as well do it in a very sunny locale. So, it's not bad. But it's basically just, it starts off in the 50s. That's actually, there's a little difference here. It's kind of reminiscent of Friday the 13th in that it starts off like decades prior, and it establishes the killer early and establishes their motives and what they're doing and why they're doing it. That's a little different for Stein, I will say that, because the prologue to this is set in 1956, and there's a very angry person who is very bitter and pissed off, and he wants to kill people, and he kills someone, and that's how it starts. Jump cut, early 90s, these kids are going out to the beach. They're going on a summer holiday. And no, vigilantes are not coming out to follow them. For no one that got that reference. And, yeah, the sun's hot, the water's cold, and the kids are cool. Too cool to live. That's what it says. Killers stalking them, one by one. A killer who never leaves a clue, who disappears as completely as a footprint in the sand. Yeah, it's great. I don't really have much to say about Beach House. The kids are staying in the beach house. They're hanging out at the beach. They have a transistor radio, and they're always listening to oldies. You know, stuff like the Crocuts and the Platters and groups like that. And this killer apparently doesn't like this kind of music because it triggers him. Because usually they're listening to the transistor, and that's when he shows up and kills somebody. So the lesson here, kids, is if you're going to the beach with the transistor radio, if you even know what a transistor radio is, ask your parents. Don't listen to the oldie station when you do. You turn on Led Zeppelin, you turn on Pink Floyd, you turn on the Ramones, anything but oldies, because that'll trigger a slasher, and the slasher will kill your friends and try to kill you. So, yeah, I like I said, I like the premise. I like stuff set at the beach. I like horror stories on the beach, and I like the idea that there's a slasher on the beach. So, this is no summer romance novel, unless you mean romance between a serial killer and the neck of a girl that he's putting a knife through. Unless you mean that, it is not a summer romance. Next up on our middling level quality is The Hitch-Hiker. This is a premise that was much better done in the 80s as a movie called The Hitcher, which if you haven't seen The Hitcher, please do. The Hitcher is fantastic. Side note, Hitcher in the 80s came out in 1986. It's a movie about a guy who's, I believe, played by C. Thomas Howell. He's driving across the country to L.A. He's driving his friend's car, and he's going to drop it off. And he picks up a dude on the side of the road in the rain. And this dude is played by Rutger Hauer. And Rutger Hauer's just talking to him at first, and he seems just like a normal guy. He seems like a very casual, friendly dude, you could have a conversation with, and then he starts, like, slowly kind of saying more and more weird stuff, like, more disturbing things. And then he kicks him out, C. Thomas Howell does, kicks him out, drives off, Rutger Hauer walks through the rain. And this begins a cat and mouse game between the two of them. And Rutger Hauer is chasing him across the desert, and he's killing people who get in his way. There's a part where, like, St. Thomas Howell goes into a gas station, like, / diner to get help. No one believes him. And then, like, Rutger Hauer goes in there and kills everybody. And St. Thomas Howell meets a girl, and they, like, kind of hook up a little bit. and she's trying to help him escape, and then he's coming after both of them. So it's a lot. It's a lot going on. It's a great movie. It's very well written, very well directed, and that premise is cool. That's an interesting premise for a story. You pick up a hitchhiker. Hitchhiker seems normal. Until Hitchhiker is not so normal and is actually homicidal. And then you have an interesting premise. And then you have to outrun that motherfucker because he's going to kill you. So, again, much better done than R.L. Stine's take on the hitchhiking story. Because, I mean, how many hitchhiking stories are there? There's a bunch. I mean, there's loads of folkloric stories about them. Lots of urban legends about, crazy hitchhikers or crazy, like, drivers following people. Like, the urban legend about the high beams, There's a lot of, like, road stories and hitchhiker stories. And so it's prime material to kind of mine for your story. If you're looking for material, if you want to write a horror story, the classic hitchhiker and or highway story is the best one. It's a good simple premise to go with, and that's fine. And this isn't bad. Like, I don't dislike the Hitchhiker. I don't overtly dislike any of Stein's books except Hit and Run, for the reasons I established in my last video. Watch the last video. And it's fine. It's just a crazy hitchhiker story. I will read the back of this, though, because I like reading these. It says, "Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a deadly ride." He wants a ride. She wants a thrill. So in spite of her best friend Terry's arguments, Christina stops to pick up the handsome hitchhiker. He's everything she thought he'd be. And more. Much, much more. Maybe too much more. Maybe enough to thrill Christina and Terry to death. Yeah, I don't even remember where they're going or where they're coming from. It's been so long since I haven't read this one in a while. It is about the two girls. They are driving, I think, on their way to, or from a concert, I think. Might be something else. And they see the dude stay on the side of the road, and he's like a very handsome dude. And he, it's set in Florida, apparently. And he's a very cool dude, and he standing on the road, and they start talking, and he seems like Mr. Charming Man at first, and then, of course, much like Rutger Hauer's character in The Hitchhiker, he's not what he seems. Would I recommend reading Hitchhiker? Yeah. Again, I would recommend it if A, you're a huge Stein fan, B, you like these kind of cheesy 80s, 90s paperback thrillers from that golden era I was discussing, or C, if you're just looking for kind of a generic thriller story, this kind of hits the spot. It's kind of the way, like, if you're really, really hungry and you eat a Big Mac, it's not the best thing you've ever eaten. It's not the worst thing you've eaten. And it does hit that nice spot. So, Hitchhiker gets a pass. It's not terrible, but it's a little better in quality than some of the Babysitters. And it's a lot better in quality than Hit and Run. And it's probably a little bit better than Blind Date. So next up we have one, again, in this mid-level quality, is The Boyfriend. And I don't have The Girlfriend with me. I've read The Girlfriend, but I don't have The Girlfriend. Which is not to be confused with The Dead Girlfriend, which I'll get to in a minute. The Boyfriend is kind of interesting. Again, it kind of feels like more like the premise of a film than it does a novel, or it can even be a novel, I guess. But basically it's about this girl who breaks up with this guy named Dex, and he dies. Or does he? Because now she's getting, like, harassed again. Stein likes to harass imaginary girls with malevolent guys. something I'm just not really picking up on. And he's back from the dead, and he's wants to arrange a date with her. One last date, because he's crazy. Yeah. I think you can imagine what the twist is in this one. I'm not going to say it, but I think you can imagine it. It's pretty obvious. Not the best one Stein's written, even for these kind of typical teen thrillers. But it's not the worst. Hit and Run will always be the worst. I forgot this was in there. And it's not bad. It has the same kind of consistent tone. R.L. Stine has like the same writing style and everything. Like everything he writes, you can tell it's written by him. He uses very simple declarative sentences. They're very short and fast and punchy, and writes the same kind of characters and the same kind of dialogue, and that's his style. That's fine. Every writer has a style that is identifiable. And I don't mind that. And it actually works to serve as kind of fast-paced thriller narratives. But, you know, it was just something I was thinking about looking here. But again, that cover art. Ooh, look at that cover art. I could just show that for the whole video, because that would be great. And next up we have another one, Broken Date. This is a lesser known one. I don't hear anyone talk about it. I don't even see it listed on, like, when you look at the, when you, like, open a book and turn to the also by page. I never see this one on here. I never hear anyone talk about it. And something tells me it's probably one that didn't get, like, much of, like, a print life. Like, it didn't have much of a publication history. Like, they probably published a few thousand copies of it. It sold moderately well, but not too well. And then they yanked it out of publication. And it has since been out of publication. Because like I said, I never heard anyone talk about it. I never see anyone, like, discuss it. Or I don't even think I see it listed. Maybe the only time I've ever seen it was, like, on Stein's Wikipedia page or something. But it's not bad. This one's a little more straightforward, because instead of, like, a mystery man, ooh, it's just the boyfriend, like, straight up. Like, it's about a couple who are, like, very madly in love, and they've been together since junior high. And they've been dating all throughout high school, and they're making plans to graduate and date through college and get married. And then all of a sudden, like, he breaks off a date with her, and then just has a 180 personality shift, where he's, like, threatening her and stalking her. And basically acting like a crazy man. Because he is a crazy man. And it's crazy. It's very short. 150 pages. That's short even for Stein. It's not bad. It's not the best, but if you can find it, Broken Date's not bad. And I like the cover art again. This reminds me of, like, a VHS box cover, like for a horror movie from the 80s. And I think this was published in the 80s? 1988, okay. Interesting. Although this was a printing from 1991, because it mentioned some Fear Street books, and the Fear Street series didn't start till 1989. Anyway, next up we have Curtains. Oh, this one's a little different, actually. I'll read the back of it and you can see what I mean. Curtain going up on terror. Her terrifying secret was buried until a driven Broadway director tore it out of her during a performance on stage. Suddenly, Rena wasn't safe anymore, and the Merritt Baxter Summer Theater camp had become a trap. Bax had made her the star of Curtains, which is the title of the play, and he would stop at nothing to elicit emotions that could lead to murder on stage. She was the envy of every other would-be actress at camp, including Hetty, whose parting threat was, "You'll never play that part, never." Even Julie, her best friend, was acting strangely. But when the stage blood turned out to be real, Raina knew the play was over, and the horror had just begun. Yeah, it's different. It's set at a theater camp, and she's has his past, and it's something unusual because Stein's characters, for the most part, don't really have like a buried past. They're usually more often than not, a typical Stein protagonist is a girl who's just an ordinary girl going through high school, has a boyfriend, and either the boyfriend's crazy or she hooks up with a guy who's crazy, or the boyfriend has a past. It's usually more that. This time, the character actually does have a shady past, and she tried to have her cover up. And a Broadway director, of all people, gets her to admit it on stage. And now she's trying to bury that past and like start a professional career on stage as an actress. And it's really weird. It's a strange premise, and it's so contrived and over the top that at least the other books I've talked about thus far have had very plausible, simple premises. This one is needlessly convoluted for no other reason than just it's a weird story. And I guess he thought it would be interesting to have all this happen like on a stage and have some guy running around backstage trying to like fuck everything up. But I don't like this one as much, honestly. Quality wise it's mid-level. It's just the story itself I don't like as much, but it's different. If you're actually looking for something different by Stein, then Curtains is the one to go with, because it's not anything like his other ones. It's not like The Babysitter. It's not like Broken Date. It's not like The Girlfriend. It's not like Twisted. It's not like The Snowman. It's its own weird, strange theatrical story. And maybe that's why he wanted all this stuff to happen, to give it that theatrical feel. Like, to make the novel feel like this convoluted, like, murder mystery play, I guess. I don't know. The tagline on it says, "The play's the thing until the blood begins to run." Anyway, Curtains it's not as good. Next up we have Twisted. Twistin' in the wind. This one's also kind of different. And I'll read the premise on the back. Anything for a sister. Abby would do anything to be in the school's most exclusive sorority, and now she's got the chance. Because the sorority sisters have asked her to join them. All Abby has to do is get through the initiation. That might be a problem, because this year the initiation is going to be murder. I like this one a lot. This is actually one of my favorites because it is weird and it does live up to its title. Look at the crazy eyes. Crazy eyes. And this one is just about a normal girl, and she tries to join the sorority, but the sorority like leader in charge is like this psychotic bitch, and things spiral heavily out of control, and it actually feels like a non-stop thrill ride of a book. It's crazy. Like, it takes a lot of twists and turns. It actually has a lot of high suspense, and the premise is fun. Like, it's an interesting and actually pretty original premise when I think about it. Like, I've never heard of a story like about a sorority that tries to get you in by killing somebody. But I mean, when you're a pledge, you gotta do what they tell you. So I actually highly recommend this one, and it's sad because this one is also lesser known. This isn't as well known as something like The Snowman, or Halloween Night, or Blind Date, or Beach House. Those are more well known Stein thrillers. Or especially like Dangerous Girls, which is a book he wrote much later, and which I won't be talking about here because I didn't read the whole thing and I didn't like it. So, plus I don't like vampire stories, and it's a vampire story. I'm more into the older 80s, 90s Stein classics, but Twisted is really good for this. It's very cheesy, but it's fun. It's original. It has a great story, great premise. And like I said, it takes some twists and turns. It has some interesting stuff happen, and it actually leads up to a very satisfying conclusion. So, this is one I actually am excited for people to read, excited to find out what happens. And I like it. And the thing is, the character Abby is very well written. She's very likable. She falls more into that typical Stein heroine category, but she's still likable, and you still want to see her succeed. And not only succeed, you want to see how she escapes the kind of twisted reach of the sorority at the school she's going to. So, oh my god. Oh man. Oh, even this intro page from an excerpt from it is intense. I'll read it to you. Darkness. Broken, she thought. Broken, broken, broken. And it will never be put back together again. The rain continued to batter the wide double windows behind them. The lights flickered again. Darkness, Abby thought. Soon we will all be cast into darkness. The lights flickered and went out. Matches were struck by shaking hands. Circles of yellow candlelight cast an eerie, old-fashioned glow. Abby stared into Leela's candle flame. One of us is a killer, she said. That's a great, hooking in. Love it. Definitely read Twisted. Definitely check it out. It's easily available on several websites. You can buy it on Amazon, eBay, Thrift Books, and kind of any other site that sells books. You can easily find a copy. I actually have 3 copies of it. That's how easily available it is to find. So check out Twisted, R.L. Stine, and look at that great cover art. So anyways, moving on. I have The Dead Girlfriend. This one's also really fun. It's one of my favorites and one of the best. We're now getting to the best of the best, starting with Twisted all the way up to this one and my final book in my list here. These are the very best standalone teen thrillers written by R.L. Stine. You've made it to this part of the video. Congrats. Woo! This one's great, and I love the cover. Oh my god. This is a standout, even for the typical illustrative style of these covers. This one goes the extra mile. That's fantastic. Look at that. I'm going to read this one to you. Is his girlfriend back from the dead? Annie just met Jonathan. She doesn't know about his last girlfriend. Doesn't know how beautiful she was. Doesn't know how popular. Doesn't know how she died. But Annie's about to find out because Jonathan's old girlfriend might be dead, but she isn't gone. I like this one. I like this one more than actually The Girlfriend. Just The Girlfriend, which was okay. It felt a little predictable even for Stein, and it falls a little short of Stein's usual teen thrillers. That one was just about a guy who has a girlfriend, but he meets this other girl and he hooks up with her. And then he dumps her and feels guilty about cheating on his girlfriend. But the girl that he hooks up with, won't stay away. She can't take no for an answer, no matter how explicitly he spells it out that I don't want you. I don't like you. She won't stay away, and she keeps insisting that she is his girlfriend, and she starts getting more and more persistent and more threatening about it. And then later you found out why she is the way she is, and her backstory. That's fine. The Girlfriend's not bad, but The Dead Girlfriend, top tier. This is great. This one's kind of similar in that, boy meets girl. Boy actually does have a tragic backstory about a girl who he was dating who died, and now she's back from the dead to raise hell and keep him from dating another girl, because her jealousy knows no bounds. No, I don't want to give too much away, because Much like Twisted, I actually want people to read this one too. And this, again, this is also easily available. However, I will say this. I have 2 copies of this, and both copies were really fucking expensive for some reason. I don't know. Oh, shit. Oops. I don't know why I dropped that. For some reason, this particular book is really expensive. I don't know why, but it's worth reading. If you're lucky, a library might have a copy of it. Or you could probably find a cheaper copy somewhere. I just couldn't. However, that's good. I think I got this one actually pretty cheap for like maybe $10, which was the cheapest I could find. But anyway, Dead Girlfriend is very good. She's crazy. She may or may not have faked her death. I'm not saying. Or she probably actually thought she died and was actually alive and comes back. I'm not saying. Because I just made up the other one. Anyway. No, it's great. I really recommend it. And you actually feel sympathy not only for Jonathan, who's just an ordinary guy trying to get through this situation, you feel sorry for the new girl, because the new girl just finds herself inadvertently swept up in all this. You know, she didn't ask for this. She just has it thrust upon her. And it's crazy. Again, lots of twists and turns, a lot of excitement, a lot of suspense, and it's another one that seems to be a little less popular than some other standalone books by Stein, but well worth the read, and it's very entertaining for him. Yeah, this would make a good premise regardless, I think, of who the author was. Stein does a good job, and it's a little longer than most of his books because there's a little more stuff, you know, that goes on. Lots of twists and turns, you know. And it's interesting because, you know, there's other stuff too that goes on, you know. And some people may or may not be who they pretend to be. Ooh. Or they might be. Don't want to spoil it. Alright, so this is the moment you've been waiting for. The moment you've sat through many minutes of me talking for. To get to this last book on my list. I bring to you my personal favorite, in my opinion the best, R.L. Stine standalone teen thriller. Dun da da da! It's Halloween Night. And yes, I'm aware there's a sequel called Halloween Night 2, however, I do own it, but I have actually not read it. So I can't make criticisms about the second book in this series. But I can talk about Halloween Night. And I will. So, why is this one my favorite? That's a good question. Even though you probably most likely did not ask that question. But I'll answer it anyway. I don't know why I'm being so goofy. Halloween Night is really... it's fun. I don't know. I mean, yes, it's fun. That's one reason I really like it. 2 is I like stories set on or around Halloween, so that goes a long way. And 3, I actually really kind of like just how strange this one is. So, oh my god, I don't want to spoil it. I want to talk about it, but I don't want to spoil it. I'm going to try to give a spoiler-free, like, synopsis here. So, the premise is a girl named Brenda. And no, she does not have a baby. That would be an entirely different book. Brenda has a cousin named Hallie, and Brenda hates Hallie. Like, Hallie is like the most popular girl in school. Everybody loves Hallie. They think she's amazing. She's Miss Popular. And not only that, but Hallie likes attention. More specifically, she likes other girls' boyfriends' attention, and she doesn't give a fuck if they're dating someone else. She will flirt, she will kiss them, whatever. And she's doing this. They're like, Hallie is straight up, you know, playing the field with guys that are taken. Well, Brenda and her friends don't care for this. And they all kind of like sit and like, talk trash about her. Which a lot of people probably would. I can understand how that would not endear her to them. So Brenda has a group of friends, and they decide they're going to have a Halloween party. And not only are they going to have a Halloween party... Oh my god. What the hell? That cat's really interested in hearing about this story. Brenda and her friends are not only going to have a Halloween party, they're going to murder Hallie at the Halloween party. They're having the party to basically play this practical joke on her, to embarrass her in front of everybody, to kind of like cut her down a few notches. And as the story goes on, it becomes increasingly clearer that the fake murder of Hallie may not entirely be fake. It may more and more become an actual, real murder. And then... Oh god, I don't want to spoil it. But I want to talk about it. How much do I talk about? Halloween night, they have the party. Everyone comes in costume. And... an attempt is made on someone's life, but it's not Hallie, it's Brenda. And it turns out that there's someone who has something against her, and you find out what it is, and it's like, oh my god, that's... One, it wasn't very well set up, so it does come out of nowhere. But two, it's still a shitty twist because there wasn't any establishment for it, except like a very casually dropped line that doesn't really tie into anything and makes the twist come out of nowhere. But I still like it. It's still a good twist to me because it's unexpected. And I like how random it seems. Jesus Christ. I like how random it seems and how it just seems to come out of nowhere. But again, I like stories that are set on or around Halloween. I like, I like premises where there's a costume party and there's someone actually killing people amongst that. I don't know what I mean. It's a very specific thing to like in horror, but I like it. And this just kind of fits all those little check marks for me. R.L. Stein, check. Halloween themed, check. A very interesting and weird premise about someone planning a fake or real murder, check. Motive for this real or fake murder, check. And the fantastic cover art as well. I love the pumpkin. It's fantastic. It's just great. I don't know, it's just, I read this one so many times. And I get excited every time I talk about it just because I like it. And I like this group of friends. I like Brenda and her little circle because they all are likable characters, even though they're kind of planning this really kind of, at first, mean-spirited, then overtly cruel, and then actually borderline terrible thing. But you still like them because they're written well enough to carry the story and maintain their likability, which is actually quite a feat for any writer, especially R.L. Stein. So, there you have it. I don't know why I haven't read the sequel, but as it stands right now, Halloween Night is my favorite R.L. Stein teen standalone thriller. I've talked about so many of these, only to get to this one. And I don't want to spoil it, even though I could easily sit here, go through the entire thing, and spoil it all, like, to death. But I don't want to do that because I actually want you guys, I want people to read this. Check this one out, Halloween Night. Again, you can find it online. I found this copy for $5 on Amazon. And I actually have another copy as well. And I will be reading Halloween Night 2 at some point, and I will probably do a video talking about that one. So, it's just good. And also, something else I wanted to quickly establish is the character of Hallie is actually not an unlikable character. That's something else I actually wanted to establish when I was talking about her. Yes, she does kind of have this flirtatious nature, and she does kind of have a less than considerate attitude about who may or may not be single, but she's written to where she is genuinely a nice person. She genuinely cares about Brenda and her family. And she's come from like this rough home life. She had a terrible kind of like upbringing and had to move out and move into Brenda's house with her family. And she genuinely like tries to be nice and help out, but at the same time she does kind of have that snarky little like I don't want to say, oh, how do I say it? It's not like she's mean, but she can be a little kind of taunting a little bit. Like, I know you don't like me, and I'm gonna kind of play with that because I like to fuck with you kind of thing. But she's not a mean or unlikable character. At least not overtly. She's complicated. She's a rare, complex character by R.L. Stein. I never thought such characters existed. But, yeah, I mean, she's kind of mean enough to warrant them having the motive to do this. But she's not like this horrible bitch. She's not like the sorority leader in Twisted. She has her flaws. Even though she also has a lot of admirable qualities as well. To the point where she fucking saves Brenda. Ooh. I will spoil that. Because someone does try to kill a character, but it's Brenda, like I said. And Hallie actually helps save Brenda and actually helps her find out who it actually is and stop them. So she's a more likable character than you think, especially when she's trying to make out with the boyfriend of a girl in Brenda's group because she fakes not having a driver's license, and then the guy offers to give her lessons. And then she confesses to him in the car, like, I just wanted to get you to myself. I was like, damn, girl. Anyway, Halloween Night, read it, fantastic. My favorite one. I'm just going to let you look at this cover art for a minute. Fantastic. Oh my god. Also the tagline, the trick is not to die. Anyways, check that out. And like I said, I'll try to read Halloween Night 2. Maybe soon. Maybe I'll do a video on it soon. Maybe not. I don't know. I got a lot going on. So anyways, thanks for watching this really long video of me rambling on about R.L. Stein books. This video would have been even longer if my camera battery hadn't died on the first part of it. So, this more than makes up for the rest of it. And I actually talked longer than I thought I was going to about it. So, this has been a really long video. So anyways, thanks for watching this long video, and I will see you again in the next one later. Oh, and subscribe, of course.